Oh crap, it's still on. Get away. Ugh. Then the what? Get away. Try not to overline your lips. It's kind of big. Damn it. My blood sugar's a little low. I got my striped shirt on. I look like I just escaped. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make any sense at all. Because that looks ridiculous. Wow, I've really got the crazy lady bird's nest going today on my hair, you guys. I feel like I need to eat something before I get started. Looking a little more insane today than normal. Hey guys, welcome back to Books Yada Yada. I'm Dina, and thank you so much for watching my channel. Today, I've got a mid-month wrap-up already. You guys, what is going on? This is insane. I just did my November TBR late, albeit last week. However, it is just incredibly ridiculous how fast this month is flying by. Although I do say that with optimism because we all want 2020 to be over. I'm going to go over, again, mid-month wrap-up, the books that I've read this month. So let's just get started, shall we? So I started the month, I think I talked about this last month, at the end of the month, is that I was going to make December kind of my guilty pleasure month, where I'm not reading a lot of psychological thrillers, but I really wanted to kind of fill the month with more light. I always say light and fluffy, so I'm just going to keep saying light and fluffy books, the kind that, don't require a ton of attention span and bandwidth in the brain. Do you know what I mean? So I went ahead and started reading some of this lady, Debbie, I believe it's Macomber, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but she writes just the sweetest little book. As I had said last month, I did want to read a couple more of her books this month because she writes holiday books, she writes Christmas books. Those are the only books that I've ever read by her, and I started reading a couple of them, or a few of them last year, and I really enjoyed them because, with a month like this, with a year like this, who wants to read anything that's too serious? Am I right? I started off with this one. It's called Starry Night, and I'm just going to read the synopsis really quick. So we've got Carrie Slayton, who is a Society page columnist, has other things on her mind. She longs to write more serious news stories. Then her editor gives her a challenge. Score the paper, an interview with Finn Dalton, the notoriously reclusive author. There's just one problem. No one knows where he is. Digging deep into Finn's past, Carrie develops a theory. With her career at stake, she forsakes her family's holiday experiences or celebrations to fly out to the remote Alaskan wilderness. There she finds the man in question, a guy more charismatic and stubborn and more sexy than she ever anticipated. And soon she is torn between pursuing the story of a lifetime and following her heart. My thoughts on this one. I actually really enjoyed this book, you guys. Yeah, this was a really good story because it takes place in Alaska. I don't read a lot of books that take place in Alaska, and I guess Debbie Macomber isn't from Alaska, but she's either lived there or worked there or something like that. So she really does know the territory well, and she has an affection towards Alaska. She likes to write about the Alaskan wilderness and the more isolated parts of Alaska. So that's definitely where this book takes you, into a very isolated setting somewhere outside of, I believe, Fairbanks. And you have this woman, Carrie, who is a reporter, and she, is really sick and tired of the stories that she's been writing for this paper and wants to write a solid story. She goes to Alaska, searches for this Finn Dalton, who wrote a book called Alone. It skyrocketed to the New York Times bestseller list. He is known to be very reclusive, grants interviews to no one since he's written his book. She decides that she's going to go ahead and try to find him, which she eventually does. And of course, where these books go, and I'm not going to spoil anything, just in case you are so inclined to want to read this book, the sparks do fly, and there's a little bit of push and pull and yada, yada, yada. And it just turns out, really sweet. And he's got a dog, which I love any story that involves, a guy with a dog or even a girl with a dog. If there's a dog involved, I'm happy. I gave this book definitely 4 stars out of 5. It was really, really fun to read, and I will continue to keep up the tradition of reading at least 1 or 2 of Debbie Maycomber's books every December. So that's the first one I read. And the second one was, and I'm looking at my Goodreads, you guys, because I just can't keep track of what I'm doing ever. The second book that I read, and why is this in order? It should be in order. Oh, it is. So the second book I read was called Moon Dance, and I'm going to insert a picture of it because I read this on my e-reader by J.R. Rain. As I stated before in one of my previous videos about kind of changing things up for December, paranormal detective series. This is about a vampire named Samantha Moon. This was the first book in the series, so I figured, I saw it on Kindle Unlimited. It was a read and listen, so I decided why not? Get the audio and the e-read. The synopsis on Moon Dance, you guys, is 6 years ago, federal agent Samantha Moon was the perfect wife and mother. Your typical soccer mom with a minivan and suburban home. Then the unthinkable happens, an attack that changes her life forever. And forever is a very long time for a vampire. Now, working the night shift as a private investigator, Samantha is hired by Kingsley Fulcrum to investigate the murder attempt on his life, a horrific scene captured on TV and seen around the country. But as the case unfolds, Samantha discovers that Kingsley isn't exactly what he appears to be. After all, there's a reason why he survived 5 shots to the head. This was a really fun book, you guys. It was under 200 pages or around 200 pages long, and you know how much I love my really short books, my short stories and novellas. I enjoyed this a great deal. The setting is Los Angeles, so this kind of has a little bit of a Sookie Stackhouse feel to it, where it has like really kind of quirky characters in an urban setting. This is told in first-person point of view, so you are getting Samantha Moon's point of view. She's a really strong character, and in the book you'll find that she's dealing with some crisis. She's been a vampire at this point, which is the first book in the series, for 6 years, and she's married with 2 children, and as the synopsis points out, she was a soccer mom, and then this horrible thing happened, and now she's a vampire, and so her husband and her are trying to deal with the situation the best that they can, and it's not the greatest of times for her because the husband has basically just burned out of being married to a vampire. She's dealing with that. So that's the subplot that's going on in the story. So she's trying to deal with that in her personal life while she's trying to figure out who attacked this dude, Kingsley Fulcrum, who survived 5 gunshots to the head. Yeah, so so you learn quickly that he's not exactly what he seems to be. All in all, it was a really great story. And now that I'm sort of, I'm kind of dipping my toes into this paranormal mystery thing. And I'm really enjoying it so far. So this was a great series. I'm going to definitely continue reading this. I really love her character. She's very, very strong, very witty, very smart. She's not a dingbat, that's for sure. So the next book I read, Alaskan Holiday, again, another Debbie Maycomber book. This one, guys, I gotta say, so I actually already read the synopsis of this book in another video. I'm gonna insert the cards up above so I don't waste too much time. This one, I have to say, I didn't enjoy as much as Starry Night. I definitely enjoyed this one more. This one was good. It was probably a 3-star rating as opposed to the 4-star rating I gave for Starry Night. It was okay. I just didn't care for the characters very much in this book. Again, it's a great setting, Alaska. The characters in this one were just kind of annoying, and I think because I did the audio, this was told 2 different point of views, and the male narrator who does one of the point of views, the point of view of Palmer, who is Josie, who is our female protagonist, love interest. The male narrator who did that point of view was just really aggravating, especially when he is speaking when he does Jack's voice. Oh my God, I would have to shut it off and just read those parts because it was so annoying. Like he sounded really cartoonish. And you know, when you listen to an audiobook, I mean, these people are, for the most part, they're actors. So I feel like the narrator came from maybe doing a lot of cartoon work, because he just sounded like Yosemite Sam, and I didn't want to listen to Yosemite Sam talking for like a quarter of the book. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. So I'm glad I didn't pay much for this book, and I got the audio book for free as well. So Alaskan Holiday. So I read Alaskan Holiday, and then I started reading the Sookie Stackhouse Mysteries, our Sookie Stackhouse series. Sookie Stackhouse series novels. I don't know. I think they're Sookie Stackhouse series. Whatever. So if those of you don't know, most of you do. For those of you who don't know, I mean, where are you living? But you're under a rock. Now, that's terrible to say. I should not say things like that. These books are the books that spawned True Blood, the HBO series. And as I was saying before in my last video, my husband and I have just been rewatching a lot of different TV series like The X-Files and Game of Thrones and True Blood, and we just started watching Justified, which we didn't watch before, but it's actually a really good show. That is based on a, not a book series, but a short story, I believe, by Elmore Leonard. So those of you who are Elmore Leonard fans, Justified, that's a really good show. Anyhow, so we started watching True Blood, and I thought, you know, I really want to indulge into some guilty pleasure type books, into some paranormal mysteries. So I figured, why not start off with the Sookie Stackhouse books, right? I did, and this one is called Dead Until Dark, first book in the series, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it, you guys. So because there's 13 books in the series and there's only 7 seasons of the show, you're going to find that, you know, some of it's a little bit more crammed into the series of the show. You're like reading it, and I have to find myself like going, wait a minute, now that didn't happen. But then I go, no, I mean, this is where they base the show off of, and they have to get creative, right, with the show. So some of it does definitely, the show diverges from the books, and that's great. I love that, because you're getting a whole new story. So this being the first one, it's called Dead Until Dark. Sookie Stackhouse is a small-time cocktail waitress in small-town Louisiana. She's quiet, keeps to herself, and doesn't get out much. Not because she's not pretty. It's just that, well, Sookie has sort of this disability. She can read minds, and that doesn't make her too dateable. And then along comes Bill. He's tall, dark, handsome, and Sookie can't hear a word he's thinking. He's exactly the type of guy she's been waiting for her whole life, but Bill has a disability of his own. He's a vampire with a bad reputation. He hangs with a seriously creepy crowd, all suspected of, big surprise, murder. And when one of Sookie's coworkers is killed, she fears she's next. So for those of you who watch True Blood, you know what happens, right? So in this first book, it does, I think the show definitely adheres to the book for the most part. There are some things that are a little bit different, but I absolutely love this. I flew through this book, and these are the kinds of books that I can tell already are going to be like candy, right? They're going to be like, I can't just stop at one. The next one I read was a book called The Cipher by Isabella Maldonado. And I'm just going to read the synopsis. To a cunning serial killer, she was the one that got away. Until now, FBI Special Agent Nina Guerrera escaped a serial killer's trap at 16. Years later, when she's jumped in a Virginia park, a video of the attack goes viral. Legions of new fans are not the only ones impressed with her fighting skills. The man who abducted her 11 years ago is watching. Determined to reclaim his lost prize, he commits a grisly murder designed to pull her into the investigation. But his games are just beginning, and he's using the internet to invite the public to play along. His coded riddles may have made him a deprived social media superstar, an enigmatic cyber ghost dubbed the Cipher. But to Nina, he's a monster who preys on the vulnerable, partnered with the FBI's preeminent mind hunter, Dr. Jeffrey Wade, who is haunted by his own past. Nina tracks the predator across the country. Clue by clue, victim by victim, Nina races to stop a deadly killer while the world watches. So if you're a fan of police procedurals, if you're a fan of a show like Mindhunter, right? If you're a fan of Silence of the Lambs, I think that you would really like these books, or this particular book. This is the first in the series. And I really enjoyed this book, you guys. You don't find a lot of books where you have a Hispanic or Latina female protagonist who is a detective. The cool thing about this book, and that really kind of hooked me into reading it, is that the author, Isabella Maldonado, was also this is her bio. So she wore a gun and badge in real life before turning to crime writing, a graduate of the FBI National Academy in Quantico, and the first Latina to attain the rank of captain in her police department. She retired as the commander of special investigations and forensics. During more than 2 decades on the force, her assignments included hostage negotiation, department spokesperson, and precinct commander. She uses her law enforcement background to bring a realistic edge to her writing, which includes the Detective Cruz series and the Agent Guerrera series. So she actually has written another series before this, which I'm not 100% what that one was called. I was intrigued immediately by an author who was an FBI agent and then has, in her retirement, turned to writing crime novels herself. So in this particular book, like I said, it's a really great story. You're traversing all over the country. They're trying to find this guy called the Cypher, who abducted Nina Guerrera years ago. And actually, that's what drove her to become an FBI agent. She comes from a very sad story in her childhood. She was a throwaway kid. Basically, she was found in a dumpster and went through the foster care system, emancipated herself at 17, and joined the police force and worked her way up all the way to the FBI. So you're really rooting for Nina's character and for her getting some justice to try to find this guy that had abducted her years ago as a child. And I will warn you, I'm not going to get too much into the book because spoilers. I'm going to warn you, there are some triggers with sexual assault and kidnapping. So if you don't like to read anything that has those particular themes in them, you might want to stay clear of this one. Isabella Maldonado is just a really great writer, and you can tell she's got the chops for it because she was a FBI agent for years and years and years. So she really knows what she's writing about. Yeah, so I would highly suggest The Cipher by Isabella Maldonado. All right, so the next book I read, Living Dead in Dallas. This is the number 2 in the Sookie Stackhouse. And I'm going to try to talk about these books not as the show, which I'm going to have a really hard time doing. When a vampire asks cocktail waitress Sookie Stackhouse for a favor, she complies. And soon she's in Dallas using her telepathic skills to search for a missing vampire. She agrees to interview the humans involved as long as the bloodsuckers promise to let them go unharmed. Easier said than done. All it takes is one delicious blonde and one small mistake for things to turn deadly. So this one, you guys, you might remember, if you watch the show, is when Eric, the vampire, who in the show is played by Alexander Skarsgård, so he asks Sookie to help out in this situation, and then using those telepathic powers. So they end up in Dallas, and so this one is where Steve Newlin gets introduced. The preacher, the reverend, the guy that has the big church that's ready to kill all the vampires, and his wife, right? In the book, he's just as annoying, and the wife is Sarah is just as annoying as she is in the series. But they're such funny characters. That's the thing with these books that I've been finding so far, you guys, is that these aren't I think that they're well written in the sense that they are so funny. They're I have had just so many laugh out loud moments with these books because they have that campy feel, just like the series does. They're not books to be taken super seriously, you know, and I wouldn't even call them really romance novels. I mean, that's not what I was expecting, you know. I mean, if that's a paranormal romance series, I think if anything, it's more of a paranormal mystery series with a little bit of romance sprinkled in there. But, you know, they're not gratuitous as far as being heavy on the, you know, the romance part. So I'm just loving these books, you guys. And again, I'm not going to talk too much about them just because I think, you know, most of you probably who are familiar with the TV show know what goes on and what happens. That one was very enjoyable as well. And I'm saving some space because I just read the second one. So I'm saving some space in between the third because I definitely want to read some other books. So Espresso Shot by Cleo Coyle. So this is number I think this is number 7 or number 8 in the series. I skipped one by accident, and it's okay. And that's the thing I like about the Coffee House Mysteries, you guys, is that you can actually totally skip a book or two, and they do a great job of writing each of the stories to be kind of standalone. And I think that's what the intention is of a lot of these cozy mystery authors, is that they don't want you to have to go back, because that's going to deter a lot of people from reading the series if they have to go back and read like 17 books just to read the latest one. So I enjoy these books because in the very beginning almost of every book, they do a little wrap up of the things you need to know about most of the characters. So quick synopsis into this one. What happens is Claire Cozy, who I know her last name is Cozy, C-O-S-I. She's a coffee house manager in Greenwich Village. I already talked about the series, so you guys kind of already might have an idea of the setting behind the series. It takes place in Manhattan. So in this one, Claire gets roped into creating a gourmet coffee and dessert bar for her ex-husband's wedding. Claire faces off with the bride-to-be, who is a total bitch. Wealthy and sophisticated, the snarky Brienne has never been a low-maintenance kind of gal, and now she's in full-blown bridezilla mode. The only way Claire can possibly deal with her is to focus on business, but murder is Claire's business too. When fatal accidents begin befalling people close to Brienne, Claire becomes suspicious. Is someone trying to sabotage the wedding? Kill Brienne? Claire decides to investigate, but what she uncovers between steaming cappuccinos and roasting the world's rarest coffee beans may just get her burned. So I just finished this one today, you guys. I finished it like right before I started doing this video. This was not my favorite of the series, I have to say. It was one of the longer books. This was like 320 pages, I think. And there was a lot going on in this one. Like I found myself kind of like spacing out. The one thing, though, that I love about these books, and this is something that I did say before, is I always learn something really interesting about about coffee or Greenwich Village food. And for those of you who are foodies out there, this one might actually appeal to you because they talk a lot about underground restaurants, you guys. And if you don't know what underground restaurants are, they're just these, it's kind of like, I think it started, I want to say, I started hearing about them in the like late 90s, early 2000s, where in New York, you have these underground restaurants. They're sort of like pop-up restaurants where new and upcoming chefs want to get their food out there and create these underground restaurants, which are basically like people's living rooms or in these secret locations. And only like food critics and foodies, people who are like influencers, get invitations to these underground restaurants to sample these young and upcoming chefs. And so that was really cool because that was a pretty large part of the book. And I really enjoyed reading about that. And one of the characters that Cleo Coyle wrote about was definitely modeled after Anthony Bourdain, rest in peace. So that was a fun character to read about in that one. A little bit of a rambly dud for me. Anyway, so those are the books that I read this month so far, you guys. Yeah, I think that's it. I feel like I read more than that, but I didn't. What are you guys reading? Let me know. As always, talk to me. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, if you've read any of the Sookie Stackhouse. I know I got a lot of feedback from my last video about the Sookie Yankee Stackhouse books. Some of you guys had read the series. Some of you started it and didn't finish. Some of you are fans of the show, whatever. Let me know what you think of them. If you're new to this channel, if you've read any of Debbie Macomber's books, again, I'm pretty new to her. I only started reading her last year around Christmas time. If you have any suggestions at all for me about what you think I would like, let me know, because again, this month is all about keeping things on the lighter side, not reading a lot of psychological thrillers. I actually didn't read any psychological thrillers at all so far this month, you guys. I burnt myself out last month for sure. So if you guys are still kind of like, or doing the same thing where you're taking a little bit of a break from the stuff that you normally read, let me know. Comment down below. Always let me know how you're doing. And I think that's it for today. So, oh my God, go away.